I've seen the difference that great government can have in a community and with the people that maybe need us the most. I want them to make the difference because if our local government is great and the leadership in local government is great, that elevates our communities. That's the tide that rises all the boats. It makes business better, it makes the communities better, it makes people healthier and safer and all the things. And if we can do that, that elevates the whole state. When we elevate the state, maybe that becomes a model for other states, which then elevates the country. And so I think the impact is really as far as you want to see it. But that's why it's so important.
Welcome back to Off the Wire. Our guest today is Glenn Hasteadt. He's a longtime local IT government leader. He spent his career keeping communities running through the storms, pandemics, and everything else. Glenn, he's a keynote speaker. He just recently retired as the IT director from Onslow County. Onslow County is home of Camp Lejeune and also Jacksonville, North Carolina, and other communities in the county. They've definitely had some huge growth over the last 2 decades. I can't imagine handling all that growth. And also, I've seen Glenn, he's been instrumental with Nickel GISA, the North Carolina Local Government Information Systems Association. That's a fantastic group, and I've learned quite a bit from them. He's been in the local county government for many years, and he's really been instrumental in the state of North Carolina in that. So, welcome, Glenn.
Thanks for having me.
So, Glenn, I think a lot of people they've got some preconceived notions on about local county government. What do you
Mhm.
think we have wrong about the working at the local county government?
Well, it's probably the same thing I had wrong about it before I took a job in local government. So I started in private industry, and to me, the stereotypical local government was like the cartoon DMV that you saw in like Zootopia. You know, everybody's about 2 miles an hour and it's just very slow and bureaucratic. And I was incredibly surprised when I got into local gov. In private industry, when a server goes down or a system goes down, you kind of see these virtual dollar signs in the air because every minute that you're down, it's costing the company money. In local government, you have systems like 911, which are much more a higher degree of intensity. When they're down, I mean, lives are actually on the line. The other thing is in business, we only had a couple of different lines of business, maybe two or three. In local gov, I had almost 30 different lines of business and they were completely separate. I mean, you had airport, law enforcement, health department, library, and they were so diverse. And each one of them has just a complete array of regulations and laws that govern how they do what they do. And you have to know them all. You have to understand how all those laws affect the data, affect retention schedules, just how they work, the processes, and what they're required to do. Because some of these laws were written before computers, and you have to still follow the law, even though it doesn't really make as much sense in a computer age. So you still have to find a way to do that. So it is challenging.
That makes me think just our industry, it seems a whole lot simpler than I thought it was. I think the power is definitely important, but thinking about emergency services and all that you had underneath you, that definitely that's quite a bit.
Yeah, we had ambulances going down the road, law enforcement driving down the road, and all those vehicles are just filled with technology. We ran an airport, which is one of the bigger airports in the area, solid waste, landfill. There's environmental concerns and everything there too. So it's just really diverse, but really deep lines of business.
Yeah. I guess there's no walking at a snail's pace handling all that stuff.
No, no, it's 100 miles an hour all day, every day, which is what made it so wonderful. We were never bored. We always felt like we were making a difference. So it really helped us get behind what we were doing.
Yeah, that makes it definitely easy to buy in.
Glenn, you talked about making a difference, and I think in me, we were kind of talking pre-show about some of the things you're doing now, actually writing a book, talking about leadership and people, and you were talking about how important people are. Can you think back and maybe there's like an event that you went through? I don't know whether that's a kind of crisis or something like that, or, I don't know if you guys had any cyber incidents or anything like that, but something where the people really made the difference in your team and how your team kind of changed that outcome, made it a positive one where it might have been looking like a negative one?
Yeah, absolutely. So we had a historic storm that hit our area, Florence in 2018. My house, I think they registered a yard of rain, which is insane because the storm came in. It came in at a Cat 1. It was supposed to be a Cat 4. It came in on the Cat 1, but it sat over us for like, I don't know, 4 or 5 days. Just didn't go anywhere. So the rain levels were crazy. We had some of the highest surge that we'd seen, and then coupled with the rain, I believe New River, if I'm not mistaken, was close to 25 feet over normal, which is insane. That's you talk about like a Helene type event that just hit the west of the state. So it was really, really horrible. But during that time, I don't think we lost internet for more than 15 minutes, and we only lost it for that long because we wound up having to do a manual switch. But I remember we had the French drain in the building, and the emergency operations center was not functioning properly outside the building. So we had water entering the building, and in 911, the power was tombstoned onto the floor. So we were sucking water off of the floor to keep it away from the power so that 911 could continue to operate,
Mm.
which was probably one of the more dangerous things I'd ever done because we had, 20,000 volts of UPS power in there as well. And yeah, that would have fried us pretty quickly. But it was through that event, actually, that was as horrible as that was for our community. That was really the highlight of my career at Onslow County because everybody there, it didn't matter what your role was, everybody there was in the boat rowing together. And if you could lend a hand with something, whether it was your job or not, you lent a hand in it. And everybody left their egos at the door. They left their titles at the door. And, we all worked and collaborated at such a high level. It was really amazing. It was really, really amazing. I don't miss sleeping on a cot between all of the switches and things like that for 9 days. But yeah, other than that, it was really a wonderful experience to be in this with that level of people in the room, just really heads down and caring about the community to such a degree that they would just do anything.
I started 4 County just a few days after Hurricane Florence hit, and that thing really was a nightmare. Like you said, it
Mhm.
sat over us for 3 or 4 days. I swear sometimes I think it went backwards and then forwards. All our rivers, they all flooded and went over, and matter of fact, we had a dike break. When the water started receding, we had a dike break, and then we had more flooding after that. Anyways,
Mhm.
it was something else.
I think we broke 28 records in that event.
Yeah. Let's hope we never see one of those again.
Right.
So hearing that, I mean, you definitely got a really strong team, and I think Onslow County's really been known for having a strong IT department. How do you create such a healthy culture? Like, how do you have such a strong team? I know county resources are very limited. How did you make that happen over the years?
Yeah, I think it's twofold. First of all, we're very intentional about the culture that we create. When I got hired, I had moved from the Greensboro area. And so I was out here alone in a rental house. My family was back in the Greensboro area still. And I had a lot of time to myself to look at what I wanted to build and design it and understand what I had to do to bring that to fruition. I think the other thing that we did is we were very intentional about our hiring. When we hired people, it, your technical skills, like your resume, that would get you the interview, right? But we only hired really like good people that were smart. And so after time, we just had a room full of good, smart people. We started with a bunch, but obviously we lost some to retirement, things like that. But we were very intentional about who we hired. And we changed the hiring process to the point that prior, I think the director and maybe the deputy director would do all the hiring. whenever I had two divisions, I had GIS and IT. Whenever we were hiring in one or the other, whoever was available in that team, and they told me who they wanted, right? And the only instruction I gave them, I said, is we don't need anybody like we already have. Like, we don't need another Glenn. We've already got one. I don't need someone saying the same things I am and agreeing with me. We want people that think differently than the people we already have. But they have to be good, smart people. And
Yeah.
those were non-negotiables. And so I remember one time we actually put a job out. Gosh, it probably took us a year to fill the position because we just never got a candidate that really met those qualifications, and we were not going to budge on them. So between being intentional about the kind of culture that we wanted, that we created, and then hiring great people, those two over time, it just turned into a powerhouse.
The not hiring immediately, taking over a year to find, handpick someone, that really says a lot. That's something I wish I would have learned earlier on in my career. If you got 5 candidates, like, and none of them fit the bill, that doesn't mean you have to take it. Anyways, I think that's a lesson that everyone should learn.
As we started to get more awards and get more renown and people knew where Onslow County was, we started getting our applicant pool went through the roof. Some of that was due to the economic climate, but a lot of it was due to awards year after year. The role that I was hiring before I left, we had applicants from South Africa, we had more than one international candidate.
Yeah. I think you're right on there. We've had that happen. I don't know, we've gone a year. That would be a long time, but I think especially if a team's expanding, and you talked about how pre-show kind of how you guys went from a smaller amount to a larger amount. Like, it's just so tempting to just fill that, with anyone, because you're drowning and you're like, we can't do this. We need somebody. And so temptation is there just to fill it with whoever can do a little work. And then that tends to bite you in the long run.
Yeah, I mean, when you make a bad hire, it doesn't matter if you hire an incredibly skillful jerk, right? Whatever that person brings to the group, you'll lose 2 or 3 times that from the rest of the team. So it's just not worth it.
So Glenn, you're talking about that crisis earlier. I guess give us a little bit of an insight on how you handled things like, you knew there was going to be a hurricane coming.
Mhm.
You talked about how people jumped in, but what did you do to prepare the team before it happened? Is there something you said to them specifically, or is there things you did that were unique to that situation?
I think we were always ready. The culture that we built allowed everyone to feel one of the most important parts of that culture was that everyone felt supported and safe. And that was instrumental because when we had an event or if we were brainstorming something or whatever it was, everybody felt valued and their opinions were valued. And so we never were coming at it as this one person, whether it's me or my deputy or anything, we're going to, rally the troops. Everybody was on board with whatever we were doing. We were very clear. We changed the mission statement right after I got there because we wanted to not just be IT support for everyone. We wanted to be that partner with every different line of business. Like when they were doing something cool, we wanted to be the first or second phone call they made. And we couldn't do that if we didn't have everyone fully engaged and everyone using every idea they had and listening to everyone else's ideas and just having that respectful environment. So I guess when the storm comes, we had already been in that kind of ready for it, just because that's how we operate every day. They just had such trust in the people to the left and the right of themselves. And they felt that support and that team mentality that we would never let anybody fail alone. If we were going to fail, we were going to fail as a team. And that's how we approached everything. So you were never going into any crisis alone. You're going in with this group of really smart people that were just really good people. And you're like, oh yeah, we can do anything.
moments like that, whether it be Hurricane Florence or I'm sure there's been other either technical disasters or natural disasters that you've dealt with, but
Sure.
communications, it can get real messy in those situations. You know, you need people to keep them calm and clear and level headed.
Sure.
How do you handle communicating during a time like that, like Florence or, other moments that you've dealt with?
I think the key is that people need clear expectations. That's one of the things that you have to really focus on. People need clear expectations. And I always thought that, at least from my point of view, you need to communicate 3 times more than you think you do. And I've also heard it said, "When you're sick of communicating, you're halfway there."
Mhm.
So to me, that communication, it's just you have to have a plan, like, how am I gonna communicate? What's the goal? How is this information gonna help them do what they do? But then we just tried to do so much of it. It wasn't just emails. We were talking, we were pepping each other up. I feel also a big part of communication to me is like praise and correction. So that to me is how you really get those clear expectations across. So like if I do a correction with you, I'd take you in my office and I'd say, hey, my expectations are here, you're here. I need you to come up, right? But I'm only communicating to one person. I'm only clarifying expectations to one person. So we really relied on praise and appreciation really to do that more than anything, because we could do that publicly. So I could say, hey, the other day, customer came to the window. They were upset. They didn't need us, but they needed somebody else. But you went out of your way to bring them where they needed to go and introduce them and did a warm handoff. And that was great. That was awesome. I appreciate that. Now everyone within earshot understood that those expectations are what's really important. So communication is just something that we were committed to, whether it was in a crisis or just in the day to day. So it just became second nature.
Yeah, I've definitely heard a few of those sayings. One that we use kind of around the office a lot is seven times 7 ways. So communicate 7 times, 7 different
Yeah.
ways. Usually we're thinking of maybe it's a new product we're rolling out or something like that, right? And people, need to be informed and trained on that new product. But what's that other saying? I think is like the something about paraphrasing that the biggest misconception about communications that it's actually taking place. And I think that is true. You can email, you can talk to people, but it's really hard. You do have to go above and beyond on that. All right, let's take a quick break. If you're enjoying this, make sure you follow us so you never miss an episode. You can follow us right here wherever you're listening, whether it's Spotify or Apple Podcast. Or if you want to, you can catch the show on YouTube as well, do a video version if you want to see what you're listening to right now. And if you want to connect to us between episodes, please follow us on our social media, LinkedIn, and other places. We'd love to hear from you. We're always looking for feedback. And now let's get back to it. So you talked a lot about leadership, Glenn, and like kind of your philosophy on that and some of the tough moments you've been through. Was there any, kind of big, we'll call it a mistake, but maybe like a lesson in your career, especially in leadership, that changed your perspective on that?
Yeah. When I was in high school, I was promoted to be a manager of a fast food restaurant near the train station that went to New York City. I don't know, I was 17 or something like that. And I made every mistake that you can make as a leader, and I made them all at once. It was just horrible. And because of that, I think I got demoted in a couple of months. And so that's actually when I learned that I had um, zero innate leadership ability. Like I was not an intuitive leader. My first boss out of college was a great leader. And he was intuitive. He couldn't tell me what he did or how he did it, but at least I knew it was possible. And so later on, when I was going to get promoted, I knew that I wanted to create something similar to that culture that he had. But I had to, learn it from the ground up. And so that made me an insatiable learner. I consumed anything and everything I could. And I think that is any leader's superpower. If you want to be a great leader, be learning because there's always something out there that you can benefit from. Like I learned from bosses I had what not to do, things that they did that were not helpful. And I would try to figure out, okay, what does the opposite of that look like? To me was my most impactful lesson. And thankfully, I was able to learn that lesson.
Yeah, I think that's you kind of to your earlier point about employees. One of the things we're always looking for is people that are willing to learn because we know, especially from a technical perspective, that technology changes quickly.
Yeah.
But I never thought about that from a leadership perspective too. But that's it's a good thought. That things are changing. You do have to keep pace. It is interesting, and I kind of had a little bit of a follow up question. It does seem that, and I don't know, maybe I'm kind of making a sports. I'll make a sports analogy, but it feels like some people have a natural talent and some people have to work really hard. It seems like sometimes I feel like in leadership a little bit that way. It feels like some people kind of just have a knack for making the right call and then some others will, but it seems like it takes extra work. Where did you kind of fall on that? Were you more instinctive or did you feel like you were always kind of having to work extra hard?
It depends on the aspect of leadership. There were some things that I was stronger at. Empathy was not one of them. That was something I had to learn, and that was the best part about learning it. Now that I'm speaking about it, empathy is one of those things where people think either you have it or you don't. And that's it. But I would say no. That's actually not true. I mean, I learned, in short, it is a learned behavior. But a lot of that is, and empathy, I think, is one of the core traits of an excellent leader. So that was something that I had to learn. But I will say, when I was learning leadership things, obviously I made mistakes along the way and things like that too. But you have to be intentional about whatever you're doing for 6 to 9 months. But really, after that, it just becomes who you are. And you don't
Mhm.
really have to expend as much effort. But as you get closer to that 6 to 9 months, the effort that you have to expend really goes down. So it's harder day one than it would be down the road.
Glenn, I don't think anyone would judge me for making a generalization with IT people, but I think empathy is just something a lot of people in technology lack. I actually am curious on
Mhm.
that. Like, how did you get better with empathy? Like, how did you focus and get better at that?
Well, I mean, really, it was a couple of different things. Really, my bride was really instrumental in that. We've been married for 32 years as of last week, and she has made me a much better man. And also, my faith was really a big part of that. I came to faith, and that really helped quite a bit. But because I'm writing and because I'm speaking about this, what I try to do is I try to articulate the process that I went through for a lot of this stuff so that people can see the steps that I take and how I got there. But what drove me to do that was definitely a combination of my bride and the faith.
Glenn, we know that, local government, let's just say that there's not an endless budget, right, around local government. We've all experienced that in some way. My wife, she's on a board of trustees at our local library, so I get a little bit of an inside look into that. But I think where budgets fall short, that's where we can be very creative. So in your career with the local government, what was like in an area or a technology or even in a staffing kind of a situation where you got creative, used it to get past some sort of limitation in resources?
Yeah, I mean, like I was telling you before we started, I think we had 5 IT people servicing almost 1,400 users when I started at the county. That ballooned up to 12 by the time I left, which is still pretty lean. We really tried to treat each dollar as if it was our own because it wasn't. We wanted all of our tax dollars to be very well spent. So we were just frugal in our mindset just from the beginning. And because of that, the way that we really were able to do so much is if we spent the money on something like 365 or some other technology, we were going to use every single bit of it. I think we were known for that. We were one of the first to really do as much as we were doing because, we had all these tools and we could fix so many problems with them. So we wanted to learn how they worked, and our staff was always looking for how can we help the users? How can we help their business processes? Because we weren't on the pointy end of the stick. So the only way that we could positively affect our community was to help the people that were on that pointy end of the stick. So we were always looking for ways to make their lives easier and better and leverage the tools that we had to their fullest extent.
Yeah, every time I've attended a Nickel GISA conference, like I've learned so much from just you all just leverage everything and even open source tools, just making magic
Mhm.
happen on shoestring budgets. It's really amazing. Thinking about local government, like you guys touch so many lives. Like I don't know that there's really an industry that touches more lives than you all. What's a story that kind of captures the impact that local government IT, what kind of impact they can have on a community?
Yeah, I mean, so we have, I used to have monthly meetings. One of the things that I did during one of these monthly meetings is I had the sheriff come talk to the team just to say, yeah, hey, this is how you guys are impacting what we're doing. And I thought he would come and talk about the computer that was in the car and all the technology that they had. What he did is he came in and he spoke about the GIS people. And for those of you that don't know, GIS is Geographic Information Systems. It's really every data has a geospatial point, and what they do is they're able to make visualizations based on all data, so you can make business decisions. We used that GIS data for vehicle locating, and he said our officers are coming home safe because we know where they are and what's going on with them. And so they're coming home safe to their families because of what you guys are doing in the GIS department. That was really impactful for that team and really helped them understand how they were helping because it was harder for them. Your IT, we were everywhere. GIS wasn't as everywhere, so they didn't have that connection. On the IT side, obviously, we're working with ambulances and we're helping the DSS and health department and everything else. It was a little easier to see the impact that you were having, especially if you were able to improve a process and give people time back in the day that they could then spend helping citizens. But that was a cool moment.
Glenn, if you had to, or if you had a lesson, let's say, either something you've mentioned already, maybe, or something you haven't mentioned that, our listeners, you would like them to kind of steal or borrow from you and kind of implement in their own teams, what would that be?
My focus is mainly leadership, right? I think as a leader, build trust. You want your team to feel supported. You want them to have clear expectations and be well communicated with. And you really want them to feel safe where they can disagree with you and others in a respectful, professional way and express themselves and their ideas. And honestly, if you were to try to do all those things and be really intentional about everything, it's, I mean, it'd be overwhelming because you really have to think about that with everything you're doing, every word that's coming out of your mouth, your body language, your facial expressions, especially when you're in a video meeting or something like that. It's almost impossible to be intentional about all of that at the same time. And I think the hack for that or the easy button for all of that is when you truly care about the people that are on your team, which is it's a choice. You can choose to care about the person that's in front of you. And when you truly care about them, a lot of that other stuff just happens. And so that would be my takeaway is if you want to see, like, if you're worried about success this quarter or this year, that's not going to help you. If you want success over the next 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, when you have that long-term vision, your best bet, if you can really care for the team and wind up doing all those other things, and you've now created this environment and this culture that success is just going to build on success and build on success, and failures will wind up being learning moments. And you know, it just turns into this snowball. And there's so many other benefits to it too, because you create this great environment where people want to be. So now they're more engaged. You have less turnover. You have less as far as coaching and things like that. I'll be honest, I got out of the habit of coaching. I hadn't had to have a difficult conversation with anyone on the team for over a year. It just becomes a lot easier from a leadership perspective. And now you can spend more time being strategic and doing the things you should be doing as a leader. So I think that's probably the hack is if you truly care about the people on your team and you want to make them successful, and you want them to grow and succeed. And that's that's how that works.
I wish there were more leaders out there like you with that mentality.
Well, thank you.
Mhm.
All right, last question, Glenn. What's a story or a moment that sums up why this work matters so much to you? And it is very apparent that this really means a lot to you.
I never thought I'd be passionate about local government when I first got into it. I was just trying to get off an airplane when I was in private industry. Now I'm really passionate about local government because I've seen the difference that great government can have in a community and with the people that maybe need us the most. And that's something I want to continue to do, even though I'm not working for local government anymore. I have taken another role with the company to be able to still help local government. I still have a passion for local government. I want them to make the difference because if our local government is great and the leadership in local government is great, that elevates our communities. That's the tide that rises all the boats. It makes business better, it makes the communities better, it makes people healthier and safer and all the things. And if we can do that, that elevates the whole state. When we elevate the state, maybe that becomes a model for other states, which then elevates the country. And so I think the impact is really as far as you want to see it. But that's why it's so important.
Yeah, I think some you mentioned we actually kind of talked about this and I don't know, Anthony's probably a few episodes back. We were talking about rising through the ranks and things that get noticed by leadership. But I think really you hit on something that we talked about then, which is, others are watching. That if you're doing something good, not only does that, obviously it's reflecting on you. To your point, it can be an example for others, whether that's in your community, in your state, potentially maybe even in the country. They individually don't always feel important, but like overall, it's good to look at the big picture from time to time.
I know sometimes, I myself, I get flustered, at the federal government, but what I've seen with the county governments and the state government, at least in North Carolina, and I would say this is probably across the country, it is truly amazing what you all do. I can't stress the importance of your local and your state government. We really need to support you all, and you guys do amazing things.
Thank you. Yeah, I think one of the best ways that you can support local government is to learn what they do and how they do it. Get involved. The more that you're involved in your local government, the better that local government will be because we'll have those viewpoints, we'll have that insight that we need from the people that are the most affected.
I'm going to take it as a personal challenge.
So, Glenn, we really appreciate you coming on. I've learned quite a bit, picked up a couple of really good insights from you. I know you talked about a book that you're going to be doing. And for those that are interested, that really, got a lot from what you said here tonight, where can they find you and keep up with when this is going to be released and stay up to date with what you're doing?
Yeah, I've got a really active LinkedIn presence. My YouTube is Power in Caring, at Power in Caring. And my website is powerincaring.com. So all three of those are great resources.
Glenn, really appreciate you coming on. To our listeners, we love having guests like this. We hope it's engaging to you, that you're picking up things. And we'd love to hear from you. Maybe it's an idea for someone else you'd like us to interview or a topic you want us to cover. Feel free to reach out to us at show@offthewirepodcast.com or hit us up on social media. As a reminder, new episodes drop every other Monday. And until next time, this is Off the Wire.
Thank you, everyone.